Recording live in the Lucky Number 7 Lounge in the basement of Dine, Drink, Travel World Headquarters in the barren wastelands of far west Texas. This is Dine, Drink, Vegas, the podcast by and for everybody stuck at home, but who would rather be in the land of neon lights and bad decisions. I'm your host, John, also known as the Baller on a Budget, and in this episode, we're going to give you our annual pull-up breakdown. We're also starting a Drink of the Day series on tiki drinks, rum drinks, and all the best drinks of summer. And we're going to update you on some Vegas news stories that at least we thought were interesting. But before we can do any of that, we've got to bring in the founder of Dine, Drink, Travel himself, the king of comps, the leader in the luxury lounge, the high roller of the high plains, the man who is always waiting for that limo to take him away to the next resort on his list. It's Bill. Good afternoon, Bill.
Good afternoon, John. How are you?
I am doing great, and I am kind of tickled that the drink of the day, and not perfectly executed, but I'm kind of happy with what happened today.
So I think I'm happy with what happened today. I'm still just trying to figure out what I'm drinking because it is so different from the sort of whiskey or vodka cocktails I would normally have. So John, why don't you tell our listeners what this drink even is?
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to be very clear. What we are making today is a Real Mai Tai, or at least our approximation thereof. So first of all, I've got to say, let me run down the recipe and give you some history. And then I want to talk about the history of this drink a little bit and why most of you, whatever popped in your head when I said Mai Tai, for most of you is probably not what we're drinking, right? Because ordinarily we think of Mai Tais as having...
this has nothing to do with what I ordered at Carlos and Charlie's on the cruise pier in Cozumel.
Yes. So most of our experience with Mai Tais are based on beach town resorts, Mexican food places all over Texas, seafood joints. So here's what actually goes in a true old school original recipe Mai Tai, right? An ounce of a light or amber rum. The original recipe called for something from Martinique. We didn't have that. We went with a blend of Captain Morgan's and Appleton's. And then it calls for an ounce of dark rum, and it asks for something Jamaican. Well, we use Jamaican in our lighter rums. So our dark rum is Pusser's Navy rum, which is it's not Jamaican funky, but there's a little funk in there because Jamaican rums tend to be funky. An ounce of fresh lime juice, half an ounce of orgeat, which is almond-flavored syrup. A lot of bars don't have that. They'll just use the same almond syrups that you would use to make a coffee drink. We actually sweetened the heck out of some almond coffee creamer because as weird as that sounds, that's actually very close to orgeat if you don't want to go through the trouble of cooking your own and heating up almonds. And I am a lazy creature, but it's not that hard. You can make your own orgeat or buy a commercial version. And then half an ounce of an orange brandy or orange liqueur. We just use triple sec in this case. That's it. No pineapple juice, no orange juice. But Bill, you asked a question before we started recording about what you were tasting. What did you notice?
So I noticed two different things. And the first, because I am a grown man with a wife and two kids and a mortgage and a couple of car payments, I don't drink alcoholic drinks with a straw because I just don't. But this has got a floater of a dark rum on the top, which meant that when I initially sipped it, I got kind of hit in the face by that floater. So that's the first thing I noticed. And I tried what you said, and I put the straw in it, which made me feel like I lost my man card, but whatever. The thing I noticed, though, was that when I put the straw in, it was exceptionally tart. And I was kind of wondering what would happen if I replaced the lime juice with, say, some orange juice or something a little bit sweeter, a little bit less tart than the lime juice.
Well, one of the things you said when we were in the kitchen earlier is it's almost like you could taste the orange. So here's some history on the drink. So before the word tiki was being commonly used, there was a guy named Don Beach who was sort of the grandfather of the whole tiki movement. That guy is interesting, and there's a How to Drink episode on YouTube where Greg, the host of that show, walks you through his whole history. He started making these Polynesian-inspired drinks. He had stories of his own prowess in World War II about all the places he went, which may or may not have been true. But he invented a drink called the QB Cooler, which was named after an organization I forget the name of, not quarterbacks. And apparently one of his customers tried to explain to Vic at Trader Vic's what that drink was. And so the legend is that Trader Vic's came up with what we're drinking now. However, when you get the almond and lime flavors together, it does sort of suggest an orange flavor. So the theory here is, and why so many of the Mai Tais we drink are these really sweet and fruit juice heavy things, is that people who had this from Trader Vic's would go to other bars, try to explain and say, I don't know, it was kind of orangey, it was kind of bright, maybe pineapple-y, and what evolved was this concoction. Floating the dark rum, and I should mention that. I gave you the list of ingredients. The light rum, the lime juice, the orgeat, and the orange brandy or triple sec go in your shaker, and you shake those, and you pour them over crushed ice or shaved ice, almost like a snow cone, and you float the dark rum on top. But what you typically find when you find a Mai Tai out in the wild is what gets floated on top is grenadine, so another sweet syrup. Which was not the original.
And to be clear, like I couldn't support putting the grenadine on top. That'd make this drink way too sweet.
Way too sweet.
Yeah,
not good. I agree. So this is definitely, if you're used to the kind of Mai Tai that goes down easy because it's so sweet, but then you are hungover and sick the next day, this isn't that. In the same way that what a real daiquiri and what the woo girls at the local college bar are drinking, two very different things. A classic margarita and what's getting served at your local Chili's, two different things. The classic Mai Tai and what most of us know are two different things. Bill, what do you think overall of the drink?
So I like it, but I've still got one question. So you said the combined impact was supposed to make it kind of taste like orange. If that's true, why not just use orange juice? And to be clear, I'm not talking about making the sort of drink that we all made unfortunate choices with in college because it was too sweet. But this drink has just got an ounce of fresh lime juice, which makes it taste pretty tart. Why not just use an ounce of orange juice instead?
Well, I will say that was not the intent, but that's how some people perceive it on the tongue.
Okay.
So, and I think the intent was basically to take a classic daiquiri or maybe a caipirinha. Basically, if you think about daiquiris and caipirinas, they're sours. You've got rum and you've got lime juice. My guess is it was just, okay, that's a great drink. What could we add to it? What could we change up? So you add in the orgeat, so that gives you that almond flavor. And there is some orange flavor in here from the triple sec, keep in mind. So there is orange flavor in here. And I think it was originally just meant to be a variant on the daiquiri and sort of evolved from there. So the goal wasn't to get to an orange flavor, but the almond and the lime together in some people's mind can read a little bit different. There's more going on.
All right. So, and I guess I got one other question, because this drink is profoundly different from what I usually do. I think I like it, and I think would like it in particular in the context of something like a pool day, which is what we're going to talk about as our main theme of this episode. Is there any place in Vegas that serves anything vaguely like this? Or has every place you've seen only served like that horribly sweet thing with a grenadine floater?
So that's a really good question. I've only been to one tiki bar in Vegas, and that's the Golden Tiki in Chinatown, which is a ton of fun.
Which should not be paired with an expensive French meal later that night.
Yeah, fine, but it's still a good place to go. I did not order a Mai Tai that night. I had a Suffering Bastard and a Painkiller. And the Painkiller is a pain to layer because the pain came back. And the next morning I was a Suffering Bastard. So those are the drinks I had. So I would imagine, because there are several tiki bars, and we're going to talk about a new one that's coming that we've mentioned in previous episodes. There are several tiki bars around Vegas. I would imagine somebody's got a Trader Vic style on the menu. I believe, now don't hold me to this. Actually, I believe, now that I mention it, that Herbs and Rye had it on their menu. Okay. With these ingredients rather than what you're used to.
My bottom line evaluation of this is it would be a great pool drink, and I would absolutely drink this by a pool. But if I'm by a pool, there's probably something I would prefer. And right now I'm thinking something Cuban themed. Like, I've got visions of that new Cuban restaurant, which is going in right by the entrance to the pool at the Flamingo. And I'm guessing they're going to have a mojito or a classic daiquiri or something like that. So this drink is good. I will absolutely enjoy it, and I would absolutely have it again. But if it's going to compete for space and money with some other tropical drink, I probably go somewhere else. What about you, John?
So I liked it as originally made, but anybody who pays attention to the way we talk about drinks will not be surprised by this. I liked mine fine, but I had to, after I made all the drinks for you, me, and our wives, I had to tinker.
And that's how you roll, yo.
And I am addicted to Angostura bitters. And lo and behold, I put in about 3 good shakes of Angostura. And even though I've never heard of a Mai Tai with Angostura, I quite liked it.
You would put bitters on your bitters, though.
Don't be surprised if later over the summer we don't get a Trinidad Mai Tai, and we don't get one where not where bitters replaces all the spirit like a Trinidad sour, because that was way too intense for you, but where a real heavy dose of bitters comes into play. And we're going to invent our own tiki drink. Some of the drinks we're going to do this summer are going to be classics, and they won't all be tiki. We'll do some mojitos and things like that. We're also going to do we're going to go off-roading on some things that exist nowhere but in my imagination. And we're going to find out whether I'm crazy or a genius, right?
I'm not sure those are mutually exclusive categories.
Maybe not, but we're going to do some classics, and we're going to do some stuff that came out of my head and see what happens. So, but yeah, look for this. And by the way, I would say, if you're in a bar with a bartender that knows what they're doing, even if the Mai Tai on their menu doesn't look like the Trader Vic's, if you want to try this out and you're in a decent bar that has orgeat, they can do this, and a skilled bartender will be able to do a better job than I did. So you asked where this is on the menu. It may not be in that many places, but I bet a lot of the places that have the, let's say, adulterated Mai Tais with all those fruit juices, if they're a talented bartender back there, they can probably pull this off too. Don't be afraid to ask. If you're tipping well and you're nice and they're not super busy, bartenders kind of like to do this. Now, if they're swamped or you're cheap, don't. But if you catch them when they're slow and you're a nice customer, yeah, they'll do that. All right, let's move on to our main topic now. Historically, when you and I started going to Vegas, you're a spa guy and I was a pool guy, and you weren't that interested.
I'm the only guy I know who is married to a girl who absolutely enjoys the spa, but I do. It's a great way to relax and to get away from everything in the world. And
we will do a whole spa theme episode and let you tee off on that. But even though you haven't converted me to the spa, a couple trips ago, about a year and a half ago now, I guess, almost 2, I think I converted you on the value of the pool day in Vegas. So I want to give you the floor first and talk about your thoughts on pools. And then I've got a few that I want to recommend for specific situations.
So, to me, before I do anything in Vegas, the thing I'm doing, the atmosphere of the thing I'm doing, needs to make sense with everything else that I'm doing that day. So
thus the no tiki drinks before the French meal.
That was horrible, and that was the wrongest you've ever been in Vegas, and you've been super wrong in Vegas. For example, there was this one time when we were at... Okay.
Nope.
What, are you saying that...
Never.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying...
No.
Okay.
Go on to the pools.
So, I want my whole day to make sense. So which pool I'm going to like best is going to depend on what else I'm doing that day. And I've got 3 different pools that I particularly enjoy. One of those is Circa Stadium Swim. And y'all, I've got a really good video of this up on the Dine Drink Vegas YouTube channel. I think it's actually still my most popular video up there. It's just a real quick walkthrough. But Circa Stadium Swim is absolutely about parties. It's also about parties with sports ball up on TV. So Circa Stadium Swim is where I would go if I was in downtown anyway, and I was in an I'm in Vegas to party mood. The other time that I might go to Circa Stadium Swim would be if I was watching college football, because if it's Vegas, it's still going to be super hot early in the fall.
Yes.
So if you go there to watch some of the early college football games, I think Circa Stadium Swim would be a phenomenal experience. Do make sure that you're reserving a cabana, particularly if you are not 20-something years old. You're going to want a little bit of private space, but I think Circa Stadium Swim is a phenomenal atmosphere.
And I will point out that even if it's not still hot, let's say it's an October game, the temperatures are down in the 70s or low 80s in Vegas. It is a heated pool. It's a temperature-controlled pool. So they do run it practically year-round.
Yeah, but the fact that the pool is heated makes zero difference to me, because at some point you're going to get out of that pool and I don't want to be cold.
Yeah, fair.
The second place I would go in, my guess is that, I don't know, I would describe this as the best all-purpose pool. The Mandalay Bay pool, because there are so many subsections of the Mandalay Bay pool that it's kind of whatever experience you want it to be. But we're from Texas, y'all, so floating down the river in an inner tube with a drink is a thing. And that's a thing you can do at the Mandalay Bay. We went a couple of years ago now and reserved a cabana, and that was a great day.
Yes.
It's got the atmosphere of a beach. So I enjoyed the Mandalay Bay pool. But remember what John makes fun of me for in the intro to this show. I am who I am. And I think my favorite pool in Vegas is probably the Four Seasons pool. Now, to be clear, the Four Seasons pool is part of the Mandalay Bay complex, which means if you have access to the Four Seasons pool, you necessarily have access to the Four Seasons, or rather to the Mandalay Bay pool. Not everyone, most people who have access to the Mandalay Bay pool can't get into the Four Seasons one. So the Four Seasons one is much more exclusive. If you feel like going to party or float in the river for a while, you can. But the Four Seasons pool is so much more chill and relaxed. It's not as big a place, but it doesn't need to be because there aren't as many people. To be clear, you can still hear what's going on in the Mandalay Bay pool, so it's not like auditory privacy or anything. It's just so much of a more calm and relaxed atmosphere. So let's say that I've got dinner reservations someplace upscale that night. Like maybe I'm going to Revea, there on top of the Delano or something like that. Then I think the Four Seasons pool would absolutely be where I go. But to me, y'all, your pool day experience needs to make sense with what you're doing the rest of the day. So there's nothing you should do in Vegas which you do in isolation. Make it fit with everything else.
Yeah, and I'm glad you ended with the Four Seasons because that gives me an opportunity for the contrast I want to draw because I'm going to recommend four pools, and one of them was on your list. My lens on this is always baller on a budget. Like I always want to give travel advice. Look, just a little bit of my personal background. I grew up not poor. We couldn't afford the second O in the R. We were po. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't have a lot of money.
But we did the whole thing where we picked the rocks out of our pinto beans, and I reacted to that by wanting the nice stuff.
Yeah, listen, I understand because I've done that. I've snapped my own peas. I have shelled my own pecans. All of that stuff. I clawed my way to middle class respectability.
I'll never respect you.
I am still not fabulously wealthy. And every now and then, and one of the things I like about our friendship and the fact that we travel together is every now and then I'm able to save up money and catch a deal. And you are great at helping plan finances to get luxury experiences. And I am so thankful for that. That's why I enjoy talking about travel with you. But what I try to recommend are not those true luxury experiences. Don't get me wrong. I love them. I know I make fun of you, but I like this stuff as much as you do. It's just fun to make fun of you.
And my wife.
I do try to recommend the baller on a budget, the things that are lovely and refined, but not quite as pinky up, right? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that aren't ever going to be wealthy. But the thing I love about Vegas is you can go and pretend you have that kind of money.
You can be wealthy for the weekend.
Yes. And if you know what you're doing, you can be wealthy for the weekend at a price point that won't make you eat cat food for the next 6 months when you get home, unless you make really bad decisions in the casino. So my recommendations are not as nice as the Four Seasons. But I want to start with an alternative to what you described at the Four Seasons. All of the luxury resorts in Vegas have beautiful pools. Most of them are quiet retreats. Some of them are big party vibes. And first of all, right off the bat, Bill and I are middle-aged, stuck-up Protestants from West Texas. We're not going to the big party pool with a DJ. We're not the people to give you that advice. I hear great things about Tao and all these other places. That's not you or me.
No.
If you want that kind of quiet luxury, if you want a really relaxing pool day in a place that feels upscale, but you can afford a cabana if you go on a Tuesday instead of a Saturday, my recommendation is Park MGM. Now, that's controversial because when it was the Monte Carlo, they had the floating river and all of that, and it was a party pool. And big Monte Carlo fans, and we have like our friends Mike and Melissa, they want to burn Park MGM down because they're still grieving what Monte Carlo was. I never went to Monte Carlo. That Park MGM pool, my wife and I have done this twice now. That is a wonderful place to have a relaxing day as a couple, or you could do it with a small group of friends. It's quiet. It's gorgeous. The pool is the perfect temperature. The wait staff is attentive. They will take care of your needs. There's a French bistro, and the name escapes, Primrose. There's a French bistro attached to the pool area at Park MGM. You really get an upscale experience at a very affordable price.
So you've actually convinced me because I've never been there. That actually absolutely sounds like the sort of thing that I would want to check out. So cool. That's now on my radar as a thing I'm going to do.
I would say the best absolute deal to me for a pool, and I always assume a cabana. I think a cabana at a pool day.
Oh yeah. Otherwise, why are you there?
Look, I am whiter than white. I am translucent. I am not laying on the pool bed that's exposed to the sun. I do not want to fry. Okay. So these are cabanas that you can afford. The Plaza to me, and I label the Plaza too as a party pool, but it's a party for people who are a little bit older.
It's we're the young people there, right?
Well, not always, but we're definitely not old enough to be everybody's dad. Okay, so that's nice. Like when Lori and I did the cabana at the Plaza, there was people older than us, there were people younger than us. But we were in the zone. The music was great. It was upbeat party music. It was loud, but not too loud. You could have a conversation. The staff was amazing. And again, I think we paid on a weekday 2 years ago. So I'm sure inflation has kicked in. We paid $150, and I think we got 100 of that back in beverage credit. So it was
like
a great
2
deal.
drinks.
No, actually, the Plaza prices are pretty good. I think we went through a couple.
You're fair. It is the Plaza.
Yeah,
right?
We went through a couple of buckets of flavored seltzer, and my wife got a margarita. And it was great.
Great.
So if you want to have kind of a party-ish day, right? It's not a crazy banger. It's not the Link, right? But if you want a party-ish day, a party for grown folk day, at a good price, the Plaza's great. The best overall, I'm going to do these out of order because I know you're looking at the run sheet. I agree the best overall complex is Mandalay. They have something for everybody. Now, the downside of Mandalay is they also have room for everybody, and it is very family friendly.
Everybody shows up.
Everybody's there, and if you go to a like I'm a father of 4. I also work in an industry where I deal with a lot of young people. I go to Vegas to avoid children. Right.
That would make the Mandalay Bay a horrible choice for you.
But that said, there are sections at Mandalay you can go to where the kiddos are not allowed. You can go to the Marina area, which is adults only. You may see some things that they don't approve of in the Baptist or Church of Christ. But there are adult areas in the Mandalay if you need to retreat from the families. In the wave pool, you're going to be next to ankle biters, and it's going to happen. The Mandalay Pool Complex, though, is truly something for everybody. And even if you're in Vegas to avoid kids, I wouldn't let that scare me away from Mandalay. If you're staying at Mandalay, the pool is a must. And then the outstanding pool experience, one of the coolest days I've ever spent with my wife. Night swim at Caesars on 4th of July. Folks, It is you just lay in you just float in the pool or lay on the bed outside your cabana and watch the fireworks going off overhead. Do that. And again, if the 4th of July is on a weeknight, I think my wife and I last summer gave, I want to say, maybe $200, and it was money well spent. Now, I don't think it came with the food and beverage credit. So we did have to pay Caesar's prices for our drinks, which are spendy. But you know what? To have that view of the fireworks and to have that evening, absolutely worth the money. Because Baller on a Budget means it's a budget, but we're not cheapskates. We're willing to spend. Folks, that is an opportunity worth spending. I hope Caesars never takes that away. And if you hear this podcast and you're going to be in Vegas on the 4th, I'm telling you now, book a cabana at Caesars Night Swim. You won't regret it.
So that's one of the things that you've done in Vegas that I haven't, where you have out Whataburgered me. Like, I would absolutely love to have that sort of a night swim experience. For one thing, it is so hot in Vegas in the summer that if you're at the pool at 2 in the afternoon, doesn't matter how much you cool off in the water, it's still going to be hot.
Oh, yeah.
I think the night swim experience would be phenomenal.
Although, to be fair, when you check in at 7, and because you have to be there by 7 to get your reservation, yeah, it's still ungodly hot until the sun goes down. Like, it's still, you're going to roast.
For a while.
Yeah.
So, John, what's going on in Vegas news?
So we've got a smaller amount of stories tonight, but that's okay because I think some of these we're going to bog down on. Jacob's Life in Vegas shared a link. UNLV did a study, and we know that gambling has tightened up in Vegas since the pandemic. And I've ranted about this because they're making record profits. Come on, let the players feel like we're winning. The house always wins. Guys, quit gouging us. Let us feel like we got something. We'll spend more. You'll get it back, I promise. But this really shocked me. Over the last 5 years, we always think of downtown as a better deal. The slot play downtown pays back less as a percentage than the strip. Bill, what do you think?
So, I am aware that my personal experience is anecdotal, and anecdotes aren't the same thing as statistical evidence. But I would want to read that study because, gosh, I do better at multiple different places up and down the Fremont Street experience than I do on the Strip. I've hit like one jackpot on the Strip ever, and it was $1,200, literally exactly the amount which required IRS reporting. I've done better than that on Fremont Street, right, like downtown, several different times. So, cool. My personal experience isn't the same thing as statistical evidence, but there is something about that just kind of smells funny. And even if that is true as a generalizable observation, if you find one of the places in downtown which is feeling particularly generous, that specific place will always do better than the places on the Strip. Because you're not going into the Bellagio because you want to win a $2,000 jackpot. That's not the thing they do.
No, you say that, but here's the thing. With table games and video poker, I think that's 100% true. Video poker downtown is way better than the Strip. But on slots, and to be fair to your point, my biggest slot win ever was downtown at the Plaza. 88-cent spin. It was my second spin on the machine. Won $987.
Oh, good Lord.
And that was 5 minutes.
Did you buy me dinner that night?
No, you weren't in town. I literally, let me tell you the story. So I went downstairs to get my wife coffee. By the way, the coffee bar at the Plaza is great. And the Plaza does not pay me to say nice things. I don't think they know I exist. However, I can be bribed and bought if they would like to, but they don't. The coffee shop at the Plaza is phenomenal. But I went downstairs. I was going to get coffee for my wife and I remembered our bartender, Eric, had given me $20 to bet on 23 red. So I've never played roulette before. I'm not a table game person, but I went over 9 in the morning. I put Eric's 20 on 23 red, and I put my 20 on 27. Well, Eric didn't win. I did. So my 27 hit $20. I want to think it was under $1,000. It was somewhere between $900 and $1,000. I hit. And yes, folks, I did tip Eric well for that. He got paid. He didn't get all the money, but he got paid. I'm walking from the roulette table to the cage, and I see a dancing drums machine, and I got a thing for dancing drums. And I know the little pot doesn't really mean anything, right? That's the way they draw you in. The little indicator that the pot fills up, and that means the jackpot's going to go soon. That's actually BS. The jackpots are all random. It doesn't mean anything. But I'm a sucker for it. When I see that pot about to burst, I got to play. So I took another 20 out of my pocket, threw it in the dancing drums machine. Second spin, boom, $987. So, and that was a great morning because I went to the cage, I got my winnings, went and got the coffee, went upstairs. My wife looks at me. I give her a coffee. She goes, "Where you been? You've been gone forever." I threw $1,800 down on the bed. She didn't have any complaints about how long I'd been gone after that. So it was great.
You win that day.
Yeah.
So speaking, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. That said, I had my best slot win ever downtown. And again, it's all anecdotal. My last few trips downtown, other than that, which is now 3 years ago, the slot play has been terrible. But at New York, Mandalay Bay, the Dirty Castle, I've done pretty well at slots downtown. Not no big wins, no
Downtown
hand
or
pains.
on the Strip?
Excuse me, on the Strip. I've actually done pretty good. I've come, most of my trips on the Strip, I've broke even or been really close on slots. Sometimes I come home ahead on slots. I think I buy this study.
All right, fair enough. Well, speaking of that study, I would like it if you would please, sir, introduce our next study or our next art story about gambling rules, because I think I've got something to say about it for a while.
So Las Vegas locally has reported that the last single deck 3-2 blackjack game in the entire valley has now sunsetted. It was located at El Cortez. People flocked to El Cortez specifically to play that game, and now it's gone.
So I don't think it matters, and here's why. I've played that game. I can envision exactly where the table is. And the way it works is if there is anyone but you at the table, you never really get to a second hand because of where they cut it. What that means is that you don't get any opportunities based on how many high cards or low cards have already been played out of the deck or anything like that. Also, it had a couple of restrictive rules that I didn't like. So sure, I would love for a single deck game to still be there and only play 3-2 blackjack, folks. Like, it doesn't make sense to pay 6-5 blackjack. The odds go so far against you. So sure, I'm sad that that's not there anymore. But what El Cortez still has, and what a couple of other places like the Plaza still have, is some double deck blackjack games. And yeah, your odds get slightly worse simply from the fact that there are more cards present in the shoe. But because it's a double deck game, you can get deeper into the deck, which lets you realize more opportunities there. And if you go at the right time of day, you can sometimes get through 2 or 3 or 4 shoes of two decks where you're the only player there. So yeah, it's sad, and yeah, I wish that wasn't true. But single deck games aren't actually that good anyway, because you quite frequently never play a second hand in the same shoe. You want to be looking for the double deck games.
And that's counterintuitive to me. I never would have known that. By the way, it's not on our run sheet. I should mention, I don't remember where I saw this story, which is why I didn't put it on the run sheet. So I'm not sure where I got this, but let's say Scott at Vital Vegas, because let's be honest, I rip that guy off all the time. Scott, if you ever listen to the podcast, hey, let's talk sometime. Anyway, El Cortez did announce that they are expanding the casino, so there's going to be even more games rolling into El Cortez. They're adding a Starbucks, which I'd
rather have that coffee coffee kiosk they've already got.
Yeah, the Lavazza coffee kiosk they have is good. They're going to be adding another food place. I wish I had the story in front of me. I believe it's going to be Asian noodles. So right now, all you have is Seagulls and a Subway. I'm glad there's going to be another food option, even though I do like the coffee they have. Starbucks isn't the best coffee in the world, but it's reliable, so I'll take it. So there are going to be more reasons to go to El Cortez coming up. Hopefully they fix the appliances in the original 47 rooms, because if you pay for them, you ought to get them. And then there's that whole pavilion section that look like murder hotels. I hope they do something with that. But good things are coming to El Cortez. It just won't be single deck 3-2 blackjack.
Indeed. So in Vegas WTF news, because we haven't done a Vegas WTF section in a little while, but it looks like a man was arrested for murder at a bus stop on Las Vegas Boulevard. There was a fight. It took a wrong turn. Fine, right? Like, not that that's good, but that makes sense. The thing which is standing out from news stories is that the alleged murderer is reported to have eaten part of the victim's face. John, you and I have been mad at one another at several different points over the course of the last decade. I've literally never once looked at your face and been like, forget that guy, I'm eating the right cheek.
Yeah, I don't Mike Tyson fan maybe after he took a bite out of Evander Holyfield's ear.
I'm going to assume that guy has at least some argument for an insanity defense.
I'm thinking
the public defender's already working on that one, right?
We're either on something like bath salts or we have some serious mental health issues. Unfortunately, sometimes a physical altercation can lead to an unintentional death, which is why you should be an adult and work it out with your words instead of with your hands. But there's something wrong with this individual. Just an awful, awful, awful story. And a reminder that even though Vegas is our favorite place to visit, and I don't want to scare, if you're listening to this podcast, you've never been to Vegas, don't let a story like this scare you out of going to Vegas. I promise you, Vegas is a safe city overall, but it is a reminder. Pay attention to your surroundings. And if there's a conflict, walk away.
Absolutely.
Yeah, walk away. It's not worth it.
So the last story that we've got on our run sheet for tonight is about an upscale version of one of my favorite bourbons. So Jim Beam has announced that they're going to release a 16-year-old version of their Old Grandad. Now, Old Grandad is normally a bottom shelf bourbon, but y'all, we live out in the middle of the oil patch in western Texas. Liquor is expensive. The Old Grandad bonded, even here, where stuff costs too much, is $22-23. And it's not that it's my favorite bourbon in the world. It's not. But in terms of a mixing bourbon, in terms of something I'm going to make an old fashioned with or whatever, it might be. It's close. I'm really intrigued. First, I didn't realize it was a Jim Beam product. And second, I really want to try that 16-year-old version, right? Like, if I can find that, I'm going to buy me a bottle. What do you think, John?
So I'm so glad we're talking about this because Old Grandad is one of my favorite things, and I don't want to talk about it too much. And I'm don't get me wrong, I want more listeners. Thank you for listening. But I'm glad we don't have a huge cadre of listeners for this particular episode because I don't necessarily want word to get out because bourbon collectors do crazy things to the market. And I will say, too, if you have been chasing Eagle Rare, Weller, Pappy Van Winkle, stop. They're great bourbons, don't get me wrong. But the thing about bourbon is the ultimate baller on a budget drink because you cannot find great scotch for $23 or less a bottle. You can't.
You can find great bourbon for less than $30.
You can't find great tequila for under $23 a bottle. It doesn't exist. But there are world-class bourbons at every price point. And I love some of those allocated spirits, but I'm not paying above sticker price because I'm not going to pay $300 for Weller when I can get a case of Old Grandad. By the way, fun fact, if you are a fan of Basil Haddon bourbons, the Old Grandad on the bottle of Old Grandad is Basil himself. They are the same mash bill. The difference is aging protocols and blending procedures in the warehouse. If you want to get Basils on a budget, look for Old Grandad. I got to tell you, the Bottled and Bond 100 Proof is one of my go-tos. It is the king of the bottom shelf. It is a great mixer, but it is sippable on its own if you can handle 100 proof. And I am a grown man, so I can. And I will sip it neat out of a Glencairn Scotch glass. I can't wait for this 16-year-old. I think it's going to be phenomenal.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, why don't you take us out, John?
Well, with that said, and I know that last story wasn't technically Vegas, but it's booze, and that's Vegas adjacent. We thank you so much for listening to us. We're sorry that this episode dropped a week late, but we're glad you found it and stuck around. If you enjoy our handiwork, please remember to share us with friends. And if you want more Dine, Drink, Travel content, Bill, where should they look?
You can find us on every social media platform at Dine Drink Travel. You can also find us on YouTube. Our main YouTube channel is Dine Drink Vegas. We've also got a separate YouTube channel called Dine Drink Travel where we talk about airports and cruises.
And we might even throw in some other travel content because I've got some interesting trips this summer and I suspect you do too. You can also interact with me on Twitter. I'm at Dine Drink John. I would love to argue with you about why cheap bourbon is the best thing in the universe. And until we see you next time, thank you so much for listening. Happy travels.